The views and opinions of the guest do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of BODS Mayhem Radio Network, its staff, affiliates, or sponsors. Parental discretion is advised. Welcome to BODS Mayhem Radio Network.
This is Mike Little, vocalist of the Swifts, and you are listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour, your source for all hard rock, heavy metal, new metal, alternative, punk, horror punk, hardcore, rock, and all local bands, with your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bodfather.
Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I am your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bodfather, and as always, I'm bringing you guys and gals awesome interviews. Today, it's an honor and a privilege to have Mr. Mike Little. He is the vocalist of the Swifts, the pop-punk band hail from Denver, Colorado, and they have released their new second album entitled All Sunshine, which is out now. And you want to get out and pick this album up and support this band. So, Mike, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going good, John. I appreciate you having me on.
So let's jump right into this, my friend. What's impressed or excited you the most about making the second album, All Sunshine? What's caught your eye about it the most, if anything? And is there anything that sticks out for you, possibly?
Yeah, so when we started as a band, a few years ago, we actually started playing just cover songs, and we sped them up to lightning speed and just, kind of played them like punk rock style and had a blast doing it. And then eventually we started writing songs, and I think the first batch that we recorded, we're pretty good, but I think we didn't quite have our sound quite dialed in yet. And I think once we got a little bit further, call it a couple years down the road, and felt like we had enough good material to put together a full length, and we think it kind of flowed better and fit better together, and even lyrically was a little bit stronger, and we're excited to go back into the studio and put all the songs together, and lucky enough we had a Rue Lester. I'm sure your listeners will be familiar with Rue. He's a guitarist from El Nino, and he was also in Machine Head back in the day.
Yeah, for sure.
He produced our first EP, and he was kind enough to have us come back in and produce the full length for him. And I mean, he was half of it was just an excitement to go back in and work with him at a much deeper level. So, I mean, we owe a lot, just the record to him.
Yeah, we're going to get into that here in just a minute about Aru, because he said some really cool stuff about you, and I really think this is cool for him to pay a little homage about working with you guys. So we'll jump with that here in just a little bit, though. But are there any songs off the album standing out more to you than any on it as of right now possible? I know these probably change from each of you when you listen to it, but also, too, from the EP, are there any songs off the EP that's also on here?
There's no songs off the EP that are on All Sunshine. It's all new material. But yeah, so the number one standout song for me is October Sky, and it's kind of been that way from the beginning. Even at the time that I was writing it, from recording it to now, hearing it, I still think it's my favorite one. Also, kind of ends up being the most personal one too. My mom passed away kind of suddenly like 3 years ago, and the song is about that, and it's directly related to that. And it's one of those songs that I feel like just kind of came out of the air. I don't feel like I had to work super hard to write it, and for me, those tend to make for the best songs. And it is different. If you listen to the record, it's probably the one that sounds the most different. And I could see somebody listening to that song and maybe, if that's the only song they heard, would probably have a different impression of what the band sounds like as a whole. But that's also what I think is kind of cool about the song. So it's definitely that one. Probably after that, I think Snappy and All Sunshine are probably my number 2 and number 3 favorite songs on the record. But, and I think, again, it's kind of the same thing. They were songs that just kind of came out and flowed a little bit more organically, and I think when a song doesn't feel forced, it just ends up, I end up liking the final product better.
Definitely condolences about your mother, man. I know that for folks that actually has lost a parent, you'll know what me and Mike has went through. It's hell. But and I don't wish that on nobody. I mean, honestly, because it's just, please make it right with your parents if you're fighting with them, because tomorrow is never granted. Next 5 minutes is never granted. So please, if you have that special relationship with them, thank them and love them every single minute that you can, because it's not promised, guys. So condolences, my friend.
Could not be truer. I totally agree. Yeah.
Setting on these songs for a while, and I'm sure you guys had to while making this album, plus getting into the studio, I'm sure you get a little burnt out on these, like we all do sometimes. Hearing somebody say, hey, this song, I like this song, and the buzz from people and the reviews, I'm sure that like puts the juices back into the excitement into that album for you guys.
Yeah, it does 100%. You know, some of it is even, you know, in any musician that's been in a studio recording a song, I mean, for one thing, you just hear it so many times that if you don't hate it by the end of the recording process, you maybe didn't work hard enough on the recording. But then, yeah, I mean, you kind of put it down for a while, and then there's even something about playing a song for somebody else and having them hear it for the first time enables you to almost hear it for the first time again. And it changes the way you hear it. You know, I think every time, like, you know, whether we've sent it out and, you know, had somebody do a review on it or whatever it is, like, it almost changes the way that you listen to it and does, you know, send a bit of excitement, like, back into it. And, you know, there's almost an aspect of it too, where enough time goes by from, you know, when you wrote the song to when you recorded it to where, you know, it almost doesn't feel like it's, you know, like it's yours anymore. And it's kind of becomes more of its own sort of organic thing that, you know, as you see other people enjoying it, you know, you can kind of enjoy it in the same way that they do for almost hearing it like the first time. So yeah, that's been a super fun part of, getting this thing out there. And, you know, I mean, talking to people like you, it's definitely, made me really, you know, excited to get back out and like play these songs live again. It'll be like playing them for the first time again.
Now, we mentioned that Rue Luster, he produced this album, plus he helped you guys on the EP. Working with him, how's it been? I mean, has he pushed you guys to that limit? I mean, did he step in when he needed to? Did he help you guys along the way and say, hey, let's try this? How's working with him on this?
Yeah, I think I didn't really. So most of the recording that I had done in bands prior to this, you know, it was all totally DIY, and, you know, we didn't know what we were doing, and we just went in there and did our thing. I think I didn't know what a producer really even does, to be honest. And, you know, in getting in there and then starting to work with him, and, you know, him immediately being like, well, this part of the song is good. This part isn't as good. You need to move this over here. You need to rewrite this part. This part makes no sense. Like, the lyrics don't make sense here. I mean, it's like you kind of have this initial reaction of like, man, like, what, you know, like, stop trying to change everything.
Yeah.
You know, like, but like, once you like let down your guard and listen to him, it's like, oh, I get it now. Like, you know, he's always made it better, you know, and there's some songs that I mean, going into the studio, or what I sent him as the demo, what came out the other end are like really, really different in terms of, you know, arrangements and, you know, harmonies on the backups and different harmony ideas. And again, he's even, you know, had me change lyrics in different spots. So yeah, he really pushed us all, I think, out of our comfort zone and challenged us to think about the songs in a different way. And it was a really cool process to see, because he's, you know, he's such a, you know, he knows, you know, he knows the music industry so well. And, you know, he's probably one of the few people I actually know that, you know, really has had a lot of success in music and, you know, he tours a lot and knows all that. But at the same time, he's not really like a pop punk guy. He's much more of like a metal guy, but was still able to come in and like, get absorbed into the genre, and like, you could see him getting excited about the songs, and it just really came through in how he approached it. But I don't know. I loved it. I mean, I can't wait to go work with him again.
Now, I thought this was cool when I saw this, and I quote, this is from Maru Luster. It was a great pleasure to produce the Swifts' All Sunshine. Maru Luster declared, I grew up a thrasher meddler who hung out with punks, so doing this album brought me back to my roots. This is the second Swifts album that he's produced. All Sunshine shows their musical growth and evolution. The vocals on this album are some of the best vocals I have ever produced. Mike Little's performances were on point. The melodies are super catchy, and we came up with so many great layers of harmonies to complement them. So kudos to you, good sir.
Yeah, and I mean, I only had to pay him like $20 to say all that stuff. So
$20 of the Michelob. There you go.
No, I mean, when I saw that quote that he'd sent back, I mean, I was really, really, really humbled by that. It was really nice of him to say all that stuff. But I mean, it's like when you go in and especially going in to do like, 10 songs like we did, you end up spending like a lot of time together. So it's, we all got to, know him a lot more like personally. And I mean, yeah, like we would sit there and like, really collaboratively like come up with, harmony parts for backups. And, he had a ton of input on that stuff, and he just has such a great ear for it. And, some of my favorite moments in the studio was, making our drummer Rich like get in there and sing parts and stuff. And, Rich will always, complain that he's not a singer, but Aru turned him into a singer totally against his will, which was fantastic. But, and I mean, people probably don't know this, but like, if you listen to October Sky, all the like acoustic guitar that's on that is all Aru. And, he called me one day and he was just like, hey, I really like this song. Like, I know it's a really special song and it has a lot of meaning. Do you, how do you feel about me, putting some acoustic guitar parts down on it? And, I was like, yeah, man, like go for it. I mean, it was just cool that he even wanted to do it. And then, once we heard it, it was just like, oh man, this fits like so perfectly. And so, yeah, it was, I really appreciated him saying all that stuff. He, like I said, we owe a lot to the sound of the album because I think he really, beat it out of us in a good way.
I want to go back to October Sky, because you said that song means the world to you. It's dedicated to your mother. What do you think she would say after hearing this song, or has she heard it before she passed, man?
No. So the song is the song is about, she passed away like pretty early in the morning, and my dad and I were there with her at the hospital. And then when we left the hospital, I didn't want to go home. And I ended up driving to this parking lot and just sat there for, I don't know exactly how long I was there, but for probably like a couple hours. And in that time period, like the sun came up and it was raining, and, it was just kind of one of those moments that I'll just never forget, just like sitting there and processing the fact that like, my mom just died. And so if you listen to the song, like the lyrics all sort of track like with that. So it's all kind of this after the fact of her passing away. So I think what she would say is it's really a really sad song. Like I feel like I got to go back at some point and write more of like a happy song for her that is more of like a dedication, because that one's more, it's more just about like, I mean, there's even a line in the song, like kind of what you were saying a second ago about, time, right? I mean, it kind of, it passes so slowly while you're in it, but then, all of a sudden you're out of time. Right.
Yeah.
And, and that's, so yeah, I think she would say it's really sad. That's what I think she would say.
What do you hope the fans take away from this new album, or message you hope they hear while listening to the Swifts music, or just anything from you guys? What do you hope that they get from it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it probably sounds cliche, but I just hope they like it. You know, I mean, we live in this, we live in this time where music is so readily accessible and really so saturated with so many different bands. And, you know, arguably it's also pretty easy to create music too. I mean, you know, any kid with, you know, garage band can create music, and it wasn't like that, 20 years ago. And so you have so many options to listen to. And, you know, I think when making this record, I wanted to make something that, you know, sounded like the music I like to listen to, which is, you know, I grew up on, 80s and 90s pop punk. And so, you know, there's still a lot of fans of that genre out there, and I hope they find their way to this album, and I hope they listen to it and, you know, can hear what we tried to make, which is a high energy, melodic, and, you know, sometimes serious, sometimes not serious, just, you know, fun pop punk album.
Do you find it harder these days to be a pop punk band than what it used to be back in the day? Because it seems like nowadays it's so hard for bands, especially just independent bands as well, not just national. I mean, it's everywhere. It's all across the horizon with it.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's really hard. And, you know, I think, you know, especially any band that's in a local market trying to gain popularity and build a fan base. And, you know, I mean, it used to be, you know, 20 years ago, you just go out and play clubs, and it seemed to kind of more organically build, or your fan base just kind of built around you. And now it's like you got to triangulate against all these other variables and, you know, and social media and all this other stuff. And it is really, really, really hard. It is really hard to stand out. And I think, yeah, pop punk is a, you know, there's still pockets of it that I think have sustained, you know, popularity, that have kind of transcended like the trends, but they're pretty few and far between. And my oldest son listens almost exclusively to hip hop. And, you know, it's one of those where I'm like, I can't tell if I'm just old now or if it really is just objectively bad, but, you know, but that is what people like now, you know. I mean, you go back to 1994 and the whole country liked Green Day, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
And, you know, but you go to 2018 and the whole country likes hip hop. And so, yeah, I mean, it's really hard, but at the same time, I mean, you got to ask yourself, what are you really solving for in being a band and making music? And if really your goal is to be famous, you know, the odds are you're going to be set up for disappointment. So, you know, we've always tried to have the mantra of, you know, if we're not having fun with this and we're doing something wrong. And, you know, I think as long as you stick to that and, you know, you work hard at it, you know, you'll find your rewards in there.
Yeah. It's like back in the day, like you was talking about, you had Green Day, but you had Good Charlotte, you had A Newfound Glory, you know, bands like that. And yeah, I agree with you on that. In your own opinion, how much growth musically have you seen this band and yourself go through up to the release of this album? Or has it just been more of a personal growth for each of you guys involved in this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, I think for me, I mean, it's definitely been a lot of growth in terms of how I approach songwriting. And I mean, again, not to go back to the Aru thing, but I feel like I learned a lot from him, just in terms of like how to structure songs and how to bring things together that work better than what I would have intuitively done. So I think for me, there's been a lot of growth. I think for the other guys in the band, like sometimes I feel like I took them a step backwards with this band in terms of the type of music, because they're all like such good musicians. You know, like Rich, our drummer, I mean, he's played in every kind of a band you can imagine, including like jazz and Dixieland and all this stuff. And I mean, he's just a phenomenal musician. You know, Jim, the bass player, I mean, he's played in big, national bands, and he's super talented. And Rob, the lead guitarist, and you can hear a little bit of this on the record, but I mean, he's just a shredder, and he's really, really, really good, and plays things that I couldn't play in a million years if I practiced 20 hours a day. So I feel like the type of music we play, I feel like I've brought everybody down a notch in terms of what they can do. But, Rob always says you got to play to what fits to the music. And I think they all do that quite well. So I'd like to think they would say they've grown, but I don't know. I feel like I drug them down with this.
What can fans expect at a show from the Swifts who have not got to see you guys live as of yet?
It's pretty hectic. We don't take many breaks. We try to string together as many songs as we can, and we're pretty exhausted and sweaty and out of breath by the end of it. But we kind of started doing that back in the day, even when we were playing some of the covers. We would string together, 5 or 6 songs into these random medleys to try to just play something that people have never heard before. And we've kind of kept that same concept in what we do now with our songs, and we like to string them together and, just keep the energy up. I mean, that's really the goal, and not like any of our songs are really slow for that matter, but we just like to keep it moving. And one thing you will see too, if you listen to the record and you hear the song Zombie, which actually is the very first song we ever wrote. We wrote it a long time ago and weren't sure whether we were going to put it on the record or not, but decided to, because it's probably our favorite song to play live. And we play it probably 3 times as fast live as we do on the record. So that's another thing you can expect to hear if you come see us.
We're living in the digital era of recording albums to get music out quicker, and plus social media to reach out to more fans who may not got to hear of the Swifts as of yet. Do you like this that we're living in right now, or no?
I mean, the digital recording thing was a tough one for me. I mean, the last time I was actually in a recording studio, it was analog, it was 8-track, you get your part down, it's mixed down, it's done, right? And I think walking into the digital era of recording, I still had that in my head, and it felt really inorganic at first to me. And then after a while, I really started to like it. When we made the record, though, in talking to Aru before we went into the studio, I mean, we all made an effort of, we don't want this thing to sound overly produced. We want it to sound like us. And I think we largely accomplished that. We might have gone a little bit nuts with some of the backups here and there, but I think that was just us kind of in the studio having fun and, just wanting to create something that would be, kind of stand out here and there. But, I have to say, in terms of the cost to make an album, the time it takes, I mean, from that perspective, I'm all about the digital side. And, I mean, you don't even have to make CDs. You don't have to make any kind of physical media anymore. So just the overall cost and the fact that all these streaming services exist and you can post your music out there for people to get it, and you can just send people links to your music. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. And I'm all about that. I think the social media piece of it is, I think it's a necessary evil. I'm not real nuts about social media in general, but I can tell you, in terms of promoting, if you have a show or something like that, yeah, it's a great vehicle to get the word out that you have something, but I don't like feeling like it's something I have to do in order to make the band successful. I guess I sort of miss the days of you just go out and play a bunch. And like I was saying before, you can kind of get a buzz built around you that way. I just feel like that route's kind of impossible at this point, and you do sort of need social media. But yeah, I don't know. I guess there's pros and cons to it.
What does the Swifts bring to the table from music, Mike, that's not out there as of right now, possibly?
I think I think it's back to the pop punk thing, right? I mean, I wouldn't say that it's certainly not what's popular right now, but I think there's still enough of a market for that kind of brand of melodic pop punk that I grew up on. And I think, you know, what we bring to it that's a little bit different, I think, is back to the guys in the band. You know, I'm really the only one that really grew up in this genre, right? Like Rob, the lead guitarist, I mean, to some degree he did too, but you know, everybody else kind of grew up in different genres, and they bring that influence and that background with them into their playing. You know, and I've said this before. I mean, you know, Jim, the bass player, is a full-on metal guy, and he plays bass like a metal guy. You know, he doesn't play bass like a punk rock bass player, but I love that. You know, and I think you hear that when you listen to it. So I think that's got that adds a little bit of a difference to it. And you know, and every once in a while when we let, you know, Rob out of his cage to shred a little bit more on guitar, I think that's something different too. You know, there's a lot of, you know, I mean, there's a lot of jokes in punk bands. I mean, even, you know, the Ramones said this, like, you know, I think they started out trying to be like, play songs like Ozzy Osbourne and realized they weren't very good at playing their instruments. So they ended up sounding like the Ramones, you know, and I think there's a lot of punk bands like that. And so it's fun to at times be able to, you know, really showcase like the talent of the players in the band. And I think that's a little bit different that you don't typically get with most pop punk bands. But, you know, I don't think we're, you know, breaking any new ground here or really try to create some different kind of sound. You know, there are times when, you know, we tried not to be too formulaic about it, but at the same time, you know, we just wanted to, you know, create something that would be, you know, melodic and catchy and, you know, and fun for people to listen to.
How much support do you guys get from venues and airplay from radio? I mean, do you guys get a lot of support or no?
We got a little bit from the, you know, from the EP, from some local stations, but, you know, we've taken a different approach with All Sunshine and, you know, and helped get it out. You know, we've been, you know, working with our friend Groovy to help get the word out a little bit more. So yeah, we've been, you know, I think as of talking to you here, we've got some airplay on the East Coast. We've got picked up, I don't know how this works, but it happens. Apparently a radio station in Australia has picked us up, started playing us. I think we've got there's something in Italy that's recently picked us up. So, and again, I think it's maybe back to the, you know, the internet age is just stuff is spreading. So yeah, definitely more so with this one than we did on the last one, which is really exciting to see where it leads.
That's going to be my next question. I mean, does that shock you that Italy has picked you guys up and now Australia that you get support from, or it's even being played over there?
Yeah, I don't know what to think about that. It's quite mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it'll give us an excuse to go play in Australia someday.
So what made you want to become a musician? What was that spark for you, Mike, that said, yeah, that's what I want to do?
I think it was, you know, being a little kid and watching MTV and, seeing Mick Mars and Richie Sambora and CeCe DeVille play, you know, and it's funny. I remember telling my mom after seeing that, because, you know, I grew up in a really small town, and for years we didn't have MTV, and then all of a sudden we got MTV. And so then I was exposed to all that stuff, and I immediately went to my mom and told her I wanted to learn how to play guitar. And she's like, great, I'll put you in guitar lessons. And I wound up in guitar lessons playing acoustic guitar, learning how to play church hymns. And I was like, this isn't quite what I had in mind. And I think I lasted a couple months on that, and then, you know, didn't ever pick up a guitar again until I was in college and lived with a bunch of guys that played, and they taught me how to play, but it never left my mind of how cool all those guys looked up there playing guitar. So it was like this dream I had from a little kid that I really didn't, you know, figure out how to do it till I was almost 20 years old.
Have you guys had that moment or show that made you guys look at each other and say, this is really worth everything that we have put into this so far? Have you guys had that moment or experience as of yet?
Yeah, I think so. There's been a couple. You know, there's actually one, you know, show earlier this year that we played this festival called the Beastival, and it's actually how we met our friend Groovy, because he put the thing on, and it was both kind of a music festival and an art festival. And it was held in this really cool basement of this really cool comic book store in Denver. They had this great big basement with a stage. And the purpose of it was to raise money for a woman that had lost her house in a fire. And there was something just really cool about it, you know, and it was this, you know, just dark, sweaty room. And we just, you know, it's just one of those where everything was clicking. We played super well. We played hard. We got a great reception and a ton of great feedback, and we all walked off stage just feeling great. And I think that show kind of came off, you know, a lull where we had played a couple shows that we didn't feel so good about. And, you know, when you have kind of a bad show or you don't get a good response, it can be like pretty discouraging. And so that show really, I think, was kind of like a turning point in all of our attitudes and being like, yeah, like we know why we're doing this. We back to like this was really fun. We're doing this to have fun, and we know how to go do this. And we can do this over and over again. So yeah, I think that was a big one.
Folks, the Swifts' new album entitled All Sunshine is out now. You want to get out and pick this up. Mike, how can folks stay in touch with you guys? Buy this album, some merchandise, tour dates, tickets, whenever you guys go on tour, whatever you do. How can they do that?
Yeah, we've got the websites out there. It's theswiftsrock.com. We're also on Facebook, also theswiftsrock.com. And I think and if you go to the website, it'll get you to all the social media links. So yeah, we, you know, get most of our communication out through that way, and, you know, send us a message or send us a DM on Instagram, and we're pretty good about responding, and really hope to get out of Denver next year and hopefully play some shows out of town, and would love to get out there and meet people.
Before I let you go, good sir, would you care to do a promo for my show?
I'm happy to do it. As long as you get out and watch some Game of Thrones, man. You gotta watch yourself some Game of Thrones. I was shocked when I heard that you've never seen it before. Yeah. I was like, you're missing out. You're missing out on a big part of life there.
You are not the only one that's told me that. And Vikings is a huge show that I absolutely love, so I'm pretty sure it's along the lines of that kind of. And I will check out Game of Thrones. I will. I'll start from the very first and go on, because I don't like starting like, you know, right in the middle of a freaking season or whatever. But yeah, I have planned on doing it for sure, good sir. I promise you I will.
Awesome. Good. Yeah. This is Mike Little, vocalist of the Swifts, and you are listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Everybody stick around. We got some great music coming up, and you only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour and BODS Mayhem Radio Network. Please get out and check out our Facebook page, our BODS Mayhem Hour Facebook page, that is. Our YouTube link's on there, plus our podcast site link is on there. And also get out and check out the Swifts and give those guys a fair shot, folks. I'm pretty sure you'll dig them. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I wish you guys the best of luck, Mike, in 2019.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate you having me on.
Not a problem, good sir.